Hello, everyone. I'm going to be starting. So whenever my grandma would discuss her funeral, she loved to say that she came into this world simple, and that's how she wanted to leave it. Luckily for everyone that's coming to celebrate her life today, the time in between was anything but simple. She traveled the world, created a family, and left her impact on everyone that she met. When I was 18, I had the fortune of purchasing my grandma's favorite town car, which I still have to this day. Every day that I get into my car, I'm reminded of all the memories that I have with my grandma. Oh, I didn't think I'd cry this soon. I thought I could have made it a little bit longer. When I was younger, my sister and I would ride in the back of the car while my grandma was running errands. But as I got older, I was lucky enough to return the favor and drive her around town and take care of her. Often as we would go driving, my grandma would like to tell me stories of growing up in Rockville, meeting my grandpa, and time spent with her children and grandchildren. Oh my goodness, definitely thought I could have made farther. I would like to share with you some of my favorite stories that she would tell me as we drove to St. Cloud and back. The first story that my grandma loved to tell me was how she met my grandpa Alvin. He was her bus driver, and she thought he was cute. One night they went out dancing, and they were soulmates ever since. They were married for 58 years, almost 59, but when they went out dancing, they were soulmates. One day my grandpa decided to take her squirrel hunting, and she agreed due to her strong love for him, because squirrel hunting is definitely not one of the activities she would have chosen herself. But he was very persistent. On top of that hill, Alvin proposed to her, and he promised her $21.50 a week, which of course was a pay raise from her time at St. Ben's, so naturally she said yes. However, she was a bit off, and it was actually 21 meals and 50 cents per week. But despite that, she worked alongside my grandpa and their children at the Townview Dairy for numerous years. As their children grew older, she and my grandpa would often visit their kids, even across the globe. For my mom, they would often visit her for birthdays and different events she had going on, especially softball games. They even got to see Sandy's infamous home run against Hot Flash Gold, where they popped champagne in celebration of her home run. My grandparents often would regularly join her for happy hour, where everyone would ask Bernice if she was Sandy's sister. She would get a little smile on her face and always say yes. It was always the joke that they were sisters. They would often impersonate each other when going to Sam's Club whenever they could. I'm fortunate enough to also fall in the category. I look like my mother and she looks like my grandma. And family was very important for my grandma. Eventually, their kids had children of their own, and if I say so myself, we have some fabulous grandkids from them. We would often visit them at their house, and I remember making card houses, sitting around the campfire and telling stories, and overall just having a great time with my grandparents whenever they would take care of us. One of my favorite stories is the first time they watched us, though, when we were very, very little. When we were little, they were taking care of us, they were having fun, but me and my sister kept asking for a thing called rabbit milk. And it very much perplexed my grandparents. They didn't know what rabbit milk was. So when they returned us to our parents, they were like, "You have some serious city kids there. They think rabbits get milk." But when my mom thought about it a little bit, she pulled a Nestle Quick milk out of the fridge, which has a rabbit on the logo, but it definitely doesn't come from a rabbit. So then whenever we would go, they would always joke that we needed rabbit milk when we went to their house. Besides spending time with their family, another great pleasure of theirs was traveling in the U.S. in their various RVs. First in the Green Machine, and then in their other two, and they ended up in what my grandma called a chicken coop. She always loved traveling in her RVs, but she didn't really like the chicken coop all that much. They often traveled back to their second home in Lake Havasu, where my grandma fell in love with the landscape and the weather. As you can see by the pictures up here, there's a ton of the landscape in Lake Havasu where they would spend all their time. I'm sure everyone that got to visit them down in their home down there had the same tour. You'd always start out in the RV park. You'd get to know all the drama down there, the best RVs, what's going on in there. They often worked in the kitchen in the RV park, and that's where they got to know their best friends, Jenny and Gordon, in the kitchen as they worked and met everyone. You'd also go to Blondie's for Taco Tuesday, which was one of their favorite restaurants down there. And then you would also walk along the London Bridge and see the synchronized lights at the night. Often you would end the night with a sunset cruise on the lake and seeing the lighthouse, which was one of her favorite parts of Lake Havasu. Sunsets was one of my grandma's favorite times of the day because it was so beautiful across the lake. Another thing she would talk about in Arizona was her hot air balloon festival, which was one of her favorite times of year. The summer after I graduated college, I finally got to make it out to Lake Havasu to see the festival and see the clear joy on her face whenever she would see the balloon reach the sky, or just their overall beauty on the skyline. Whenever I would look at her, she would just comment on what balloon was the prettiest that she saw of the day. Another thing they would do a lot in Arizona, they would go to flea markets. Flea markets were one of their favorite things. I'm sure everyone who got a gift from there, it was probably from a flea market. They were always unique, but they were always special. In one flea market across in Mexico, we get to the story of this wonderful lamp in the corner, if anyone had questions about it, of why it was here. This was a lamp my grandma absolutely fell in love with, but they had crossed the border into Mexico, and they had walked across. So my grandma just had a scooter, and my grandpa was walking, so they didn't have a car. But she absolutely loved this lamp. So she told the seller, if you can get it on my scooter, I will purchase it. So then 20 minutes later, after finagling it onto the scooter, she finally got it between her legs, and then she's driving back across, looking around, basically hidden behind this lamp. She would always get a wistful smile on her face whenever she would remember the custom officers' faces as they saw this little woman practically hidden behind this huge lamp. She made sure to tell everyone the story whenever they would come visit her in her house. I've heard the story multiple times because she was so proud of it. And it came to her to the nursing home, and it comes to her at the final place. As you can see, a lot of the stories I've told this evening, family was one of the most important pillars in Bernice's life. She put everyone above herself and wanted to be a person that people could go to when they wanted to share a fun story, or just needed to be met with a smile and a hug. Many people will be left memories of her being the best hostess on the block. She could throw any event with parent ease and grace, either at the famous corner bar or during their numerous camping excursions across the globe. She was well known for a tradition of having at least 3 meats and a couple bags of Twizzlers at every party, which is a tradition that her children and grandchildren will continue to this day. So we do have a party afterwards, and I'm sure you can count the meats. There will be at least 3. Now, the last story that I want to share encapsulates my grandma's planning prowess. My grandma, the forever planner, had a plan for her funeral. She knew what tasks she wanted people to do. She also knew what she wanted to wear, but the outfit did change throughout the year. She also wanted an Afghan on her legs so she would never be cold, and she wanted the special pine box that she is in to encapsulate her simple ending. This box was so important to her that a couple years ago, she and her younger sister, Mary Lou, went to the only company that makes these boxes in Avon to give them a quick little test run to make sure that she would fit. She always joked that she couldn't gain any more weight or else she wouldn't fit in it, but she made sure that she would. Also, after my grandpa's funeral, she decided that in terms of flowers, she wanted something smaller and not as elaborate as my grandpa, as she wanted to continue the simple motif. My mom, Sandy, had made this beautiful heart to represent the love that Bernice shared with everyone throughout her life. She included this metal sign that my grandma... Oh, you're getting me crying. I knew she was going to be the one.
Stop looking at Mom.
She included this metal sign that my grandma had made, which start each day with a grateful heart. My grandma lived this saying in every facet of her being, even through the years of ailing health, which never impacted her smile or ability to connect with people. My grandma had non-traditional symptoms of Lou Gehrig's and Parkinson's disease, which intrigued doctors, but at one point in my grandma's journey, she decided that she had had what she had, and she wanted to spend the rest of her time with family and friends, enjoying the love of everyone around her, instead of dwelling on what could be. Her strength and perseverance to live her best life is something I strive to emulate in my own life. Within the last couple years, her ability to verbalize was impacted by a paralyzed vocal cords, but she was always able to communicate with those around her and make them smile. She started carrying a drawing board around to be her voice, as she was giving them a little wink and an okay symbol, which were her favorite gestures. She was able to light up any room with her mood and smile, which will be missed by all those gathered here today. In closing, I want to say thank you, Grandma, for all the lives that you touched and lessons taught. You will leave behind great memories of an extraordinary life and a legacy of love. Now, if everyone wants to blow a kiss to her and just her love that she gave until the very end. Thank you, Grandma.